Hey, let's go back. What are your memories of Mortal Sin from the old days? Are they clear? Are they hazy? Are they good? Are they bad? What
Somewhere
do you
in the
remember?
middle. Yeah, like when you said, "Oh, do you remember the interview in the toilets?" So I'm like, nah, nah. So I don't know. Some things you remember, and some things, you often get a lot of people say stuff, and you're like, really? Did that happen? Oh, okay. Yeah. So I don't know. It's weird how you remember some things and some things you don't remember. We're getting old, mate. We're getting really old.
Um, all right, memories of like you were one of the first bands of that genre from Australia. How difficult was it being heard, getting a gig, and getting recognition? What are your memories of that part of it?
Look, it's not like today with social media. You can
Mm.
spread you can spread your word far and wide quite easily. Back in those days, you had to rely on a couple of the magazines that were out, like Metal Forces and Kerrang. So what we did was, because we'd recorded the album on our own and we didn't have a record label, we pretty much targeted a whole bunch of people. We thought, right, who are we going to send these LPs to? So we targeted Bernard Doe, who was the editor of Metal Forces. We targeted Shade's record shop, which was the biggest record shop in London. And we just pretty much just, I don't know how many we sent out. We probably sent out maybe 50 albums, to people who we thought, should get it and should have a listen. And yeah, that kind of pretty much worked for us. So what happened was, when Shade's record got it, they put it on. They thought, oh, this looks pretty cool, and started cranking it in their store. And lo and behold, one of the A&R guys from Phonogram Records just happened to be in the store one day and walked up to the guys behind the counter and said, "Who is this? The new Metallica album?" And they're like, "Oh no, no," because at the time I think Metallica were releasing. I think it might have been Ride the Lightning or
Master of Puppets.
yeah,
It was 86.
a was a it had just turned 87. It literally was about this week in 1987 because it took
Yeah.
us a while to get it out. So yeah, it might have been Master of Puppets. I
Yeah.
can't remember which one it was, but
It would have been
uh,
Master of Puppets because in '86 I actually saw Metallica in the US and that was on Master of Puppets tour.
yeah, right, okay. So yeah, so basically they were playing it, and he's asked what it was. Was it the new Metallica album? And they said, no, no, this is a band from Australia, Mortal Sin. And he's like, yeah, never heard of him, but wow, this is pretty cool. So next minute, maybe a week or so later, we got a phone call. Or I got a phone call. I mean, how dumb was it to put your home phone number on the back of the album? You'd think you'd think it was a stupid idea, but lo and behold, we got a call from Phonogram Records. This guy named David Thorne, and he says, "Oh, hi, my name's David Thorne. I'm from Phonogram Records in London." And I go, "Oh yeah."
Yeah,
And
yeah.
because at the time, Metallica was signed to him, and Def Leppard was signed to him, Bon Jovi was signed to him, and maybe a few other bands. And we thought, well, why would they be ringing us? So he started talking to us. He said, "Oh, look, I heard your album while I was in Shade's record shop a couple of weeks back, and I had a talk and took the album to his representatives at Phonogram, and they all agreed that we should sign you guys." And I'm like, ah. So yeah, it pretty much went from there. It was a case of probably right place, right time, and did we have the right material? So obviously, we thought we'd written some good songs, and obviously a lot of other people thought we wrote some good songs as well. So yeah, within probably a month or 6 weeks, we were signing a record deal with Phonogram Records, a major label.
Fucking unreal.
So it
Just
was pretty bizarre.
Yeah. Just back to the sending albums out. That was back in those days. That was a massive undertaking, sending 50 like albums to all
Yeah,
places overseas. And that. I'm assuming that's a cat on your desk there.
it's a dog.
Dog. Oh, it's
um,
behind you. Okay.
yeah. So look, we made up 4,000 records. That was all. That was pretty much all we could afford. We all put money in for it. So printing up 4,000 records, and then once we'd signed that deal, they pretty much asked us, could we send them 2,000? So I had to ship 2,000 LPs across to England.
Fucking hell.
So I can't remember how much it used to cost to send a record in those days, but look, it's nowhere near as obscene as it is today. Like today you can be looking at $14 to send a record.
Mm,
I think back in the day it might have only been a couple of bucks here or there.
yeah.
But we thought it was critical. With the tape trading that you knew was happening back in those days. We thought the only way we could do this, because I mean, originally we were just recording a demo that we could send around to everyone, to get involved in all this tape trading. But when we were at the studio, the guy who was our producer, he was pretty much like the in-house producer. He said, "Look, this is good, guys. Why don't you just do a record?" And we're like, what do you mean? How do we do that? We didn't know anything about it.
Mm.
He says, "Oh, look, I'll give you a couple of numbers, blah, 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 blah. And yeah, just make a record straight up." So yeah, we did that and just started sending them out. And look, like I said, most of the ones we sent out, obviously they fell in all the right hands, all the good people. They started spreading the news. We started, like we got a review in Metal Forces magazine that was 99 out of 100.
Yeah, right.
And I've got a copy of that magazine. And in the same magazine was Anthrax's Among the Living, which got 95. So you're sitting there, and these guys are really highly rating this album. So we're like, wow, we're on a good thing here, basically.
Mm.
And yeah, just everything seemed to fall into place and happen simply because we sent those albums out.
Mm. Yeah, well done. Tell us about the Metallica support tour in, what was that, 89 now? That's still a long
Yes,
time ago. Tell us about
89.
that.
Yeah, look, that was kind of when they had announced that we're coming to Australia. We were pretty much like, oh, that's ours. We've got
Yeah,
that for sure
yeah,
because we're on the same label. I mean,
yeah.
we're label mates. But it wasn't that simple. It was, we pretty much had to fight for it. I think, probably every band in Australia was wanting it as well. So I think we had the upper hand simply because we were label mates. I think the record company was maybe playing with us a bit, saying, "Oh, this, and this," and I'm like, "No way, man! We're label mates. We've got to get it. We've got an album coming out. You don't be stupid. This is ours. Come on, all that sort of stuff." And I think it took a couple of weeks, and then they finally come back to us and said, "Yep." I think what they were doing was planning the second album release. They were trying to tie in our album release with their album release, because I remember being in the studio. I can't remember if we were recording or if we were mixing it, and I was listening to Justice for All, and I couldn't get it out of my head. The snare sound is like, man, what is it with this snare? It's like, and it was really putting me off. And I just put that album down, and I probably didn't touch it again for months, And it was months later that the tour came up, and they were coming to Australia, and we got the thing, and I put it back on again, and I thought, you know what, you just have to block out that, listen to the songs. The songs are brilliant, and I thought, this is going to be a mad tour. This is just going to be amazing.
When the tour was announced?
Yeah, when the tour was announced, there was I think there was only 2 shows, Sydney and
Yep.
Melbourne.
Yep.
And I think all you guys, put your foot down and said, "Well, hang on, you've got to come to Adelaide." Yeah, there you go. So all the Adelaide fans, they put out a petition, and lo and behold, it worked. So
Yeah.
we were basically we're planning to go to Melbourne first and then Sydney, and our management said, "Oh, look, there's been another show out, and we're going down to Adelaide." We thought, "Oh, great, Adelaide, oh, great, 15-hour drive, awesome."
It's not that. Oh, yeah, from Sydney. Yeah. Okay.
From
Sorry.
Sydney,
Yeah.
yeah. So um, in some ways, it was good because we knew Melbourne and Sydney would be pretty, like wow, and the Adelaide show was, was what did they hold there? 2,000, 2,500 or something at Thebank?
2000. Yeah. And it
Yeah,
was fucking packed to the gills. Yeah.
yeah. And we thought, all right, cool. This will be a good kind of warm-up show for us, and it'll give us a chance to, make sure we got our shit together before we hit Melbourne and Sydney. So yeah, look, the Adelaide shows it was a good taste for Mortal Sin. Basically, it was our first probably international show, and I don't know if you remember, that was 1989, and literally we'd started in 1985, so not a lot happened between 1985 and 1989 as far as international shows go. We were supposed to get Anthrax, we were supposed to get Megadeth, and for whatever reasons, those shows never happened. So by the time when Metallica had pretty much announced they were coming to Australia, the Aussie thrash metal fans were, they were just going hypo, going apeshit, saying, wow, this is going to be the greatest thing. And it was, it was for Mortal Sin, and I guess even for Metallica and for all the thrash fans in Australia, it was probably the defining moment of thrash metal in Australia, I guess. Everyone still talks about those shows. You ask anyone what was the best metal show you ever went to, that one or those ones come up quite a lot, with people in their memories. And so, and for us too, if I had to say what was the best ever show we ever did, I would say probably the Metallica tour.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Why did you end up leaving back then?
Look, the first time, because I've done it a couple of times.
Yeah.
When we came off the Testament tour, we did Testament, and then we did Faith No More, two tours in a row, which was like 7 weeks, and I kind of just found it like we kind of sacked Wayne just before we went overseas. So Wayne, we did a couple of big shows in Sydney for the Face of Despair tour, and Wayne was just kind of getting too crazy. He was just making it very difficult for us. And so we ended up getting Steve Hughes in the band, who was at the time was in Slaughterlord, I think, or maybe he was doing a couple of other things. And so when he got in the band, it was good at the start. It was good to not have a grumpy Wayne in the band, and just shit sort of not coming down on us. Steve was funny. He kind of made things sort of bearable in the band. And then we went on the tour with Testament and Faith No More, and I don't know, 7 weeks on tour with the guys. Just didn't sit with me, and I didn't like what was going on and how things were sort of turning out. And so, yeah, just I come home and I made the decision that I had enough, basically.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't a light decision. It was just something that I felt, and I think a lot of it had to do with the pressures of having to write the next album as well. I was trying to write songs while we were on tour, and I just wasn't coming up with what I wanted to come up with. I was struggling a bit. And the way that went with Steve in the band, the direction sort of changed a bit, because at the time, Chili Peppers, Soundgarden, Nirvana, all of them were sort of just starting to get really big, and Steve Hughes was a massive Red Hot Chili Peppers fan and Faith No More fan, and because we went on that tour with Faith No More, all of a sudden the direction just seemed to shift, and I didn't like that shift. Obviously I thought our third album had to be, basically it had to be another thrash masterpiece. If we're on a major label, we had to show what we got. And so I don't know. I just wasn't happy. So I just told the guys, look, I can't do this anymore. I've got to go. See ya.
Yeah. Two reunions showing up on my timeline here. How did they go? How did they come about, for starters? And how did they go?
90, I think it was 95 or 96. Wayne and I sort of, I don't know, we met up again, and we said, oh, do you want to get the band back together? Do you want to do something? And I said, yeah, sure, why not? And we got in touch with Andy, and so we thought, yeah, all right, let's do this. But we couldn't get Paul. I think Paul was at the time maybe living he's in Tasmania now, so I don't know whether he was in Tasmania back then or not. And I think we did try it with Mick, rest in peace, Mick Burke. But Mick, he had a severe injury to his brain, where a couple of things. He got zapped. He was a refrigeration electrician.
Yep.
And he got zapped, and basically what happened was his neck was stuck in a certain position, so his head was turned sideways, and he couldn't, for whatever reasons, he couldn't sort of get much movement in his neck. And so I was having some home rehearsals with Mick at his place, where he was living in a flat in Parramatta, and I noticed that he was like a split second behind in everything, and I said, Mick, you're behind, you're off the beat, mate. What's going on? He says, no, I'm not. And I said, oh, look, you are. And I said, which is silly coming from me, because I'm freaking hopeless with timing. But we were playing along to a backing track.
Yeah.
And so I could tell that he was just a slight bit off. So I went back to the guys and I said, oh, look, I'm not sure about Mick, man. I don't know. I need you guys to, to have a listen and back me up whether it's going to work or not. And in the end, I think we all agreed that, look, as much as we'd love to have him back in the band, we didn't think it was going to work. So we had to start going around looking for two extra guitarists, which we ended up getting Hefty, Anthony Hoffman, and Troy, who played in a lot of sort of punky, hardcore kind of bands, but he was a metalhead down to earth. And we got those guys, and we started doing some stuff. We'd organised a tour. We went to Perth. We did a couple places, and there just wasn't the spark. We wrote a couple of songs. We recorded a few songs and put it out on Revolution of the Mind. I don't know if you've heard that. So we had a couple of originals on there, and we put some live tracks and some stuff like that on it. It didn't sell very well. We didn't do all that great on it. I think it was the two guitarists, as good as they were in their own right, they just didn't know what we wanted. They weren't feeling Mortal Sin. And I guess at the time we didn't really know where to go either. It was 96. Yeah, okay. So 96 was the year of Pantera, that kind of scene was sort of getting big. And the thrash scene in Australia, it was more death metal and more sort of grindcore, more new metal, that kind of vibe. Thrash metal it wasn't dead. I won't say it was dead, but it was, you know, kind of getting washed away.
Yeah, yeah.
So well, we did, I don't know, what, 2.5 years of that lineup, and then we just decided this is not working, so we just called it quits. The second time around was 2004, sort of mid
Yeah.
2004, and we thought, look, we've got unfinished business. We really felt we could still offer something. The thrash metal scene, had picked up again, and there was a lot of tours going around, and obviously Metallica had lifted the scene up to the stratosphere. So we just thought, look, let's have another go. I'm sure we can write better material. We can do this. So we had it. It was me, Wayne, and Andy again, and we thought we had to get some super duper guitarists. So we had a chat to Mick Sultana and Joe Buttigieg, who were Addictive guitarists. We thought, man, we know these guys are really good. We know they can write songs. They were a brilliant band in themselves, Addictive. So we had a chat to them, and they were a little hesitant at first, and in the end, we showed them some material that we had started writing, and I for some reason in the end we were able to convince them. So we had myself, Wayne, and Andy, and then two guys from Addictive, and we thought, cool, this is really good. Now, when we started writing with those guys, we just clicked straight away. We things kind of worked really well. But in the background, Wayne sort of started his old shit again. He's just such a grumpy old man, and having him around was just started to get unbearable again. So I think we did one show. Now I worked with Wayne. We worked at the same company, and so I pretty much had to put up with him, 6 days a week, and it was very hard to tolerate. And we did one show. I think it was Metal from the Brain, 2005, in Canberra. And I don't know, we just had this massive argument, and it just blew up really bad. And I just said, look, fuck off, just don't ever contemplate even coming back to Mortal Sin. You're done. But it really came to a head. So around the same time, Joe Buttigieg, I can't remember whether he decided he didn't want to do it anymore or what. I just can't think of what the reason was, but he left as well, or whatever. So it was up to me, Andy, and Mick. Now Mick, he was just a great songwriter. I really wanted to keep Mick. I really felt I could write some good songs with Mick. So we had to find a new guitarist and a new drummer basically at the same time. We were down to 3 members, and so we put out some feelers. I can't remember if we put an ad in Drum Media or something, or online was sort of just starting as well, so we might have done something online. And we auditioned a couple of people, and we had Nathan Shea and Luke Cook come. They come from the same band, and they wanted to stick together, which was really cool because, oh, great, a drummer and a guitarist who already know each other and who have played in a band together. We thought this could be good. And I didn't actually go to the audition because I was up in Harvey Bay at my brother's place for a holiday at the time, and I said to Andy, look, I'm going to put this in your hands. You tell me if these guys are good. You tell me if they're not good. Tell me. I'll sort of put my faith in your decision. And so, yeah, he rang me up and he said, "Oh, guess what?" I said, "Oh, what?" He said, "Oh, these guys are amazing." I said, "Oh, really?" And he said, "Yeah, these guys are 100 times better than anyone we've ever had in Mortal Sin." I thought, "Really? Okay, all right. Okay, I've got to see this." So like a week later, we organised a rehearsal, and I went there and had a listen, and I just thought, man, oh wow! Like, for starters, Luke was a totally different drummer to Wayne. He was more technical. He was more he was just more of everything. He was spot on with everything. I could hear everything. He smashed the drums, and I just thought, wow, he's really cool. And Nathan kind of paired really well with Mick. Like, even on first listen, once we played through the songs, we were going through some of the older songs, and we heard like Lebanon, Women in Leather. We're hearing these songs, and we're going, wow, these songs just sound so much better. What is it? So when you're in a band trying to get members that gel together, trying to get personalities that gel together, trying to get the technical side of it, you got the right gear. You got to. There's so many different elements to being in a band, and then you've got the songwriting. Then you've got all of those things have to come together. And after just one listen, I thought, man, this is going to be it. This is really good. So we'd already had a couple of songs at the time, which I thought were okay. We hadn't written a song in since the 1996 reunion, so it had been 8 years. But before that, for me, realistically, it had been 1990 since I'd written a decent song. So we're looking at 14 years, and I thought, fuck, how do you write? I'd forgotten how to write. So the first couple of songs, which they are on An Absence of Faith, if you listen to My Nightmare, and I think there's, what's the other one? There's another one on there. They're quite simple. They're quite simple and basic. It's just basic riffs, basic lyrics. And for me, that was just my sort of getting back into it, right? Oh, this is how you write. Yep, I remember now, this sort of thing. But when Nathan and Luke joined the band, we thought we could go that one step further. We thought, and Mick, of course, who we knew was a very technical guitarist and quite superb when writing. So we sat down and we started writing songs, and I just felt so good about it. I finally felt that I'd had some, a band that could really put out some top-notch songs. So I had to lift my game as well. And we had a meeting at one stage, and we sort of said, right, what are we going to do? How are we going to do this? How do we get Mortal Sin back on to where we should be? Because at the time, as I said, like, new metal was coming around, and we had to sort of fight up with we had to make Mortal Sin kind of new, but not take away from the old. We had to join the old Mortal Sin with the new Mortal Sin. We had to merge them somehow. We didn't know how we could do it. And I said to the guys, well, why don't we write Lebanon Part 2? That would join everything up. That you got Lebanon off the first album, and if we wrote Lebanon Part 2, we would somehow join the stories, and we would join the music, and we would, we could kind of merge it. And Nathan had a bunch of songs that I just said to everyone, look, whatever you got on CD, whatever you got on tape, just throw them at me. Let's have a listen to them all. And I spent weeks and weeks and weeks listening to what everybody had, and Nathan had this one which sounded kind of Eastern, Eastern metal. It just had a really kind of a good feel that I thought this could be it. I don't know, and I said to him, look, man, I think this riff that you got there. I think this is Lebanon Part 2. He goes, oh yeah, okay, I get it. So we started writing. It's called Tears of Redemption, and it's basically a story in the first Lebanon. It's a story about the battle between the Muslims and the Christians. So in the second, in Tears of Redemption, it's about a 20-odd-year-old, adult who survived the first war but lost his parents. So he was orphaned, and he's grown up sort of questioning his religion, basically saying, look, well, I don't want to be Muslim anymore. What if there's a God? Why did I lose my parents? Blah 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 blah. So it was kind of a conflicting story where, on one hand, if you refute Muslim or Islam in a Muslim country, you get the death sentence. And so my reckoning behind the lyrics of the song was to say, well, you can't make me be Muslim. So there's a line in the song, you won't make me be a Muslim. And a lot of people were sort of saying, oh, man, you can't say that. People are gonna murder us. They're gonna kill us. And I go, look, it's not me saying this. It's the guy in the song. I'm writing it from the perspective of this 20-year-old kid who's questioning, if there is a God, why is there war? Why did my parents get killed in this religious war? Blah 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 blah. And in the end, I thought it was probably the best song we've ever written. And so the writing was really coming on really well. So we thought, okay, we're starting to get enough songs for an album, and we needed a couple more. And I used to have writing sessions with Mick as well at Mick's place, and he was playing some tapes or a CD or whatever, and this song come on, and I said, man, what's that? He goes, oh, that's an old Addictive song that we didn't release. I said, no, it's not. That's a Mortal Sin song. He goes, no, we can't use it. It's already got lyrics and everything. I said, I don't want to hear the lyrics.
Yeah, okay.
Let's. If it never got released, do you like it? He said, oh yeah, I love it. I said, all right, let's take the music. Forget about the lyrics. I don't want to hear them. I don't want to get influenced, and I don't want to even know what the song sounded like with lyrics. So okay, he sort of gave me a copy of the tape, and I started writing some lyrics, and it ended up being Dead Man Walking, which I think is probably the second best song we ever wrote. So and when we sort of finished writing it, everyone agreed, man, this is as good as a Megadeth song. Like this could easily sit on any Megadeth album, because it was just so technical with the guitar, and we never really had Mick Burke was one thing. He was very progressive. He wrote a lot of progressive riffs, and as good as he was, Mick was just like an extension of that, but at another level. I don't want to rag down on Mick, because Mick was really great, but Mick Burke and Mick Sultana, I've got two.
Yeah.
Mick Sultana really started coming into his own with the writing of the songs, and I don't know, I just kind of really felt good with him and Nathan, both of them. When you're a singer in a band and you're the one writing the lyrics, you really got to gel with everyone. The songs are working, and there were some songs on that album, An Absence of Faith, which I wrote so many different versions of lyrics to some of those songs, and in the end, I just went with my gut feeling and thought, I'm the songwriter. I'm going to write what I feel like, and I think in the end, it was kind of it was an album that kind of maybe would attract or would sit in with not necessarily the new metal kids, but the thrash metal kids that sort of had just come into the scene, not like you and I, who we grew up with the scene. It was kids that, maybe millennials who were sort of late 90s people who were coming into the thrash scene, we thought it might sit well with them, but also sit well with the old school guys, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So look,
Okay.
it was a tough album to write, but I think we kind of nailed it. We ended up getting a small record deal with Armageddon Records, who are in Germany, and they are also the organisers of the Wacken Festival. So
Yeah.
hence,
So the organisers from Wacken, I was going to ask you about Wacken. How did that go?
yeah. So Armageddon Records. So the first thing was obviously to try and get a record deal. In 2005, no one was signing thrash bands. We
Yeah.
tried Blast, we tried all the thrash labels, and all of them sort of pretty much flat out rejected us.
Yeah.
You know, we sent CDs out to a bunch of labels, and as good as we thought the CD was, everyone said, "Oh, we're not signing thrash bands. We're not signing thrash." Everyone said the same thing, and we're like, "Why is nobody signing thrash bands? Thrash is the best metal there is, you know, like in my eyes." So yeah, getting a deal with Armageddon, we kind of targeted them because we knew they were organising Bucking Festival, and so yeah, we kind of got lucky. It was only a small deal. Look, I don't think we sold a lot of records with them, but the main thing for us was to get back overseas and to get on either a tour or at least. I think if you're in any kind of band, Wacken is probably one of the festivals that you'd say, look, it's on my bucket list,
Mm, mm.
and it definitely was on ours. And so the main key of that whole saga or whole episode was to get on Wacken Festival. So in 2006, we said to Thomas, who was the organizer, you got a spot for us on Wacken. And he said, oh, look, I don't know at this point. And I'd gone through all the bands that had been announced. And I think there was a spot somewhere, it was to be announced or something. It was basically saying more bands to be announced. And I said, that's one of those spots is for us, isn't it? And he goes, oh, look, I don't know. I think their biggest concern was how much it was going to cost to get a 5-member band from Australia.
Yeah.
This is the biggest fall for every band in Australia if you want to tour overseas. Is before you even organise a tour, you're up for $17,000 just for airfares.
Yeah.
So I said to him, look, we'll pay our own way. And he goes, you'll pay your own way. I said, yeah, we'll raise our own funds and we'll pay our own way and we'll organise some other shows and everything. And so you don't have to worry about that. And so next thing we knew, like a week or two later, he's emailed us and said, congratulations, you're on the Wacken Festival. So it's like, oh, yes. It was the same kind of feeling as when we got Metallica tour. It was like, yes, we're playing Wacken. It was only in the small tent, but we thought, well, look, we're at Wacken. Who cares?
Yep.
I don't care. We're playing in the Dunnies, we're playing Wacken. So obviously, fast forward, we'd organised a few of our own shows. We couldn't get on any tours because the weird thing about summer over in Europe is it's all festivals. There's
It's fucking all festivals. Yeah.
don't go through on tours. They just jump from festival to festival. So we couldn't
Yeah.
really jump on anything, and we didn't have an agent, so we couldn't get on any other festivals ourselves. I think was it that year? No, it was the next time we went. But we'd sort of organised a few small shows here and there, small venues in wherever I can't even remember where they were. But anyway, so I come up to the Wacken tour, and we were playing in the small tent. I think it was about mid-afternoon, so we weren't on first or anything like that. It was mid-afternoon. It was kind of hot. It was dusty. The tent was absolutely chockers. Now, I don't know if you've ever been to Wacken, and if you go in, the tent's usually got 200 or 300 people. for most bands. And you get some bands, which you might get a full tent, but not often. And we had people outside because we were brought up to the tent in the back of a truck, and we got out and we just saw this massive line outside the tent. We thought, wow, this is interesting, because we hadn't seen inside as yet, but there was just this massive line of people trying to get in the tent. But the tent, when we got inside and we looked through, the tent was just chockers. Like, it is a big marquee tent, so it's probably held, I don't know, maybe 6,000. It's maybe as big as the Horden.
Mm.
And yeah, so it was chockers full, and then there was this massive lineup of people trying to get in. We thought, wow, this is for us. This is pretty cool. So yeah, we played, we kicked some ass. I think we gained a lot of fans, or whether those people were actually fans or not. But yeah, it was really good. We come out of there and we had faces were covered in dust, and nose, we were blowing dust out of our nose for about 3 days after that. Yeah, so that was pretty amazing. And then that was 2006. So in 2008, we were still signed to Armageddon, and sort of things were going slowly. We hadn't quite written the next album yet. So same sort of thing. We harassed Thomas from Wacken Festival and said, because we that year we went to Europe twice. We went on tour with Overkill in March, which was kind of like a winter tour. And I can't remember how many dates. I think it was like about 16 dates or something like that. And so we were starting to get, a bit of a following, which was really cool. So I said to Thomas, I saw this space on main stage. It was like the opening band for main stage. It said, to be announced. Again, I said to him, that's our spot.
You should have just fucking changed the name of Mortal Sin to be announced, and then fucking...
Yeah. So he said, I don't know if we can put you on main stage. I said, man, come on. No way. You have to put, it's got to be us. So we hassled him for a couple of weeks, and in the end we won through, and he said, all right, I give you this spot. You'll be first on stage. It was like, wow, we're playing main stage at Wacken. And obviously playing Wacken was the bucket list, but then after you've clicked that bucket list, it's like, main stage. We've got to play main stage bucket list. So again, we said to him, we'll pay our own way. We'll pay our own way. It's like, oh, okay, you pay your own way, we'll give you the spot. But we didn't have any money because we'd already been to Europe that year. It was like, man, where are we going to get money from? So somehow or other we had to raise, I think the fares were like $2,500 each. So we had to come up with $12,500.
Yeah.
And so we got the spot, but we didn't have money. We were like, we got to get the money. We just got to do whatever we've got to do to get the money. And in the end, we got the money. It was like, I think it was maybe a month before or something like that. And I said to guys, we're going to Wacken. So where did we get the money? I said, doesn't matter where we got the money from. We're going to Wacken. So yeah, it was a hard task and a difficult one, because when you got no money and you got to try and come up with $12,500 just for airfares, and then you got to come up with money for accommodation, and then you got to come up, you got to make merch. So in the end we got it done, and I think we made 100 shirts, and I took along some CDs. So I can't remember. No, we did have the shirts made in Australia. So somehow or other, I was carrying 100 shirts and 200 or 300 CDs in my luggage, So we got everything over there, and I went over to the merch table because I couldn't see the Mortal Sin shirts up there. And I said, oh, you what happened to the Mortal Sin shirts? And he's gone, oh, we sold them out. I said, seriously? I said, we only just literally come off stage. He said, oh, we sold them out hours ago. So we literally sold shirts by the time they went up,
Yeah.
So we were first on. It was 12 midday. I did an interview with with backstage with this American TV, and it ended up the guys were on stage and I was still doing this interview, and I said, oh, we've got to go, we're on. He says, oh, okay, see you, no worries. And I run out on stage and we started the first song, and I looked out there and it was like, oh my fucking God, there was like 60,000 people there.
Yeah,
We've got some YouTube footage of it, and whenever I show people, they're like, wow, you played to that many people. Look, they go forever. And we were first band on. And I'm just in disbelief that we were first band on. I thought maybe play in front of, 1,000 people or something. And I looked out in the back and there was 50, 60,000 people.
It's crazy, isn't it?
This is people who went to bed at 4 a.m.,
Yeah.
You just fall into your sleeping bag at whatever time in the morning. But here it was, 4 minutes. We're on main stage. There's 60,000 people there, and we're playing our songs. Wow, this is a dream come true.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So, what's happening for you musically in the intervening years? We'll get to the current thing in a minute, but what's been going on musically in the intervening years?
Zero. Nothing.
Zero.
So I have a wife who's got an incurable disease. It's a muscle wasting disease. She's in a wheelchair, so I'm pretty much caring for her 24/7.
Yep.
5 days of the year, and that's sort of that's my life now. I just want to look after her, make sure she she doesn't suffer or whatever. Give her all the help. So I mean, this little cameo with Hidden Intent at Churches of Steel, that's sort of, I mean, basically I go down to Adelaide whenever I can for the cycling. I'm a massive cycling nut. I follow the Tour de France, all the cycling tours. So when the cycling comes to Australia in January in Adelaide, I pretty much, if I can go, I'll go. And my wife, because it hasn't been on for the last couple of years because of COVID, my wife said, oh, look, if you want to go, you can go. I said, you sure? You don't want to get home for 4 days. So we've organised some care help and all that sort of stuff, and my daughter's going to come up and take care of her for 4 days while I go down for the cycling. And I did this one song with Hidden Intent up in Sydney just before Christmas. And I said to Chris, look, I'm coming down to Adelaide in January for the cycling. If you want to do this again, I'll come up and do a couple of songs with you if you want. And he said, oh, fuck yeah, absolutely. So lo and behold, he comes back to me and says, why don't we do a whole set of Mortal Sin songs? I said, what? You're kidding me, aren't you? And I don't really sing. I haven't really sung since I left in 2012. So it's been 10 years since I've really sung properly. And I had to stop and think, shit, can I actually really do like 8 songs of Mortal Sin? So I've been practicing a fair bit, and I do sort of sing at home, but sort of not at the level that you need to sing when you're on stage. It's I try to explain to people, but singing at home is that's nothing. That's just like me and you talking.
Yeah.
When you're singing with a band, you've got all this noise, you've got all this sound behind you. You gotta pump it out so loud, so hard that it kills you if you're not prepared for it. So obviously I'm preparing for it, and I don't want to go out there and look shit, sound shit, whatever, because they're Mortal Sin songs, so we've got to do them justice. So look, it should be good. I think people will get a kick out of it. I'm hoping they do. I certainly will. It'll be one thing to get up on stage, and it's sort of sing 1 song, 2 songs, 3 songs, but doing a 45-minute set, that's a whole nother story. So hopefully we'll do everything justice, and it'll sound pretty cool. I mean, look, the guys from Hidden Intent, they're amazing. So I've got faith in them. It's myself that I'm worried about.
If there's a backing band that you would want to do it, it's Hidden Intent. So
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely, I've got faith in them as well.
yeah, and look, I mean, Chris is he's a massive fan. I mean, when he showed me his Face of Despair tattoo that he got on his arm, I'm like, dude, you are fucking nuts. Why the fuck did you do that? And he's like, man, it's that album to me is that inspired my whole career,
Yeah,
which is pretty cool. Yeah, it's a tribute, and I was chuffed by it. And yeah, Chris, he harasses me all the time. Come and do this, man. Come and do this, and I'm like, look, my situation sort of doesn't allow me to do sort of as much as as I probably want to do or can do. So when the opportunity arises, I said to him, "Yeah, cool. Let's do it. Let's do it." And but now everybody wants to do it again. We've
yeah.
had offers to do it in other places, and now I've got to sit there and go, I don't really want this to become a thing. It's a one-off thing for the moment. So now that's what it is.
Well, we are indeed fortunate, so we are looking forward to that coming up very soon. Churches of Steel, they always go off. Those days go off like a frog in a sock. So
Cool.
it's going to be cool. Almost Human are coming out doing the first show in over 10 years.
Can't believe it. I was looking at some of the things they've done, and they've just been around since like 1980 or something. I'm
Yeah, yeah.
like
I
5 years.
first, I said that'll, it's going to be wild, man.
Cool. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. Hey, do us one thing. Give us the horns, man, up in the camera. It's important to be heavy metal about it. Hey, Matt, thanks so much for your time. Thanks for making the time for me. This will be awesome. Couple of weeks, Churches of Steel band, fucking gonna go off. Looking forward to it. Best you start singing in the shower. Get it happening.
Yep. No worries. All good, man. I'll be good.
Hey, thanks, man. Stay
Yep.
well.
Take it easy. I'll
Hope
see you there.
everything's good at home, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks, man. Take it easy.
Thanks, man.